Welcome to the College Football Oddscast here at the Odds HQ YouTube channel, odds.com. We're here with our brand new early week college football betting preview show. We'll be together, the four of us, all season long, bringing you great college football betting analysis each and every week. We'll be doing a early week show starting next week. This show will be on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern time, so make sure you make note of that. We will be on 9 p.m. Eastern every single week during the college football season. Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, starting next week. And then every week during the season as well, we will have a pre-kickoff Saturday morning college football betting preview show, 11 a.m. Eastern time, right before all the games kick off that day. And we'll give you your last-minute injuries. If we've added bets between the early week show and the Saturday morning show, we'll let you know what we're on in terms of any additional plays that any of the four of us have made. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We had a great time on Saturday, first show together. Conor, Mac, DJ Big Boss, Big Ragoo, you know them well. Glad to be back with them again here Tuesday night and every single week moving forward during the college football season, twice a week. So let's get everybody for actually just some quick thoughts first on the week that was before we look ahead to the games that we saw, the games that are going to take place this week. Last week, I think one of the themes that stuck out to me was we had 5 FBS matchups. I mean, 5 games with 2 FBS teams facing each other. I threw out the games like Eastern Kentucky and Marshall and UTEP and Houston Baptist, those games with an FBS versus FCS program. I was looking strictly at the games involving the 2 FBS programs. There were 5 of them last week in the first week of the season, and the unders were 4-1 in those games. And a lot of these games, they didn't even come close to going over the total. They not only stayed under the total, they stayed under with room to spare. So it leads me to think, early in the season is the lack of practices, player absences, players opting out. Is it going to lead maybe to a little bit more of a growing pains for the offensive side of the football, and the cohesion and the lack of it is going to show up more on that side of the football than it will on defense? And it certainly appeared that way in the first week of the season. I'm also going to get to a point when we get into next week's games, we've got to talk about it. Teams that had extra practices before the college football season, they all did well against the teams that had fewer number of practices before the college football season. And that makes perfect sense. COVID-19 has really screwed things up in that regard. And a lot of teams barely got on the football field for a practice session. There's some teams that didn't even practice at all. Some had 1 or 2 practices. And then you got some teams that had double digits in terms of number of practice sessions. So that's something I'm going to discuss later on. But definitely 4-1 to the under with the 5 FBS matchups. That's the thing that stuck out to me from the first week of the season. I'll get into some individual performances as well. Certainly Army looked impressive, without a doubt, just throttling Middle Tennessee State. Southern Miss, so bad, losing as a 2-touchdown favorite. Their coach resigns. Jay Hopson saying, you know what? To hell with this. I'm sick of this crap. I'm out of here. Losing to South Alabama as a 2-touchdown favorite. He said, I'm not sticking around for the rest of this season with this group. You kidding me? But Jay Hopson out. So a lot of storylines already after just 1 week of action. Big Ragoo, let's get to you. Some things that you took away from the first week of games.
Yeah, when we hit on the panel, we did pretty good as a whole, breaking those few games that we had to work with down. But like you said, I've been looking at the scheduling aspect of college football since mid-June and trying to figure out how these things were going to play out. And like you said, the COVID is the big issue. The teams, as far as getting their starts on time, which that was like the big thing back in June. They came out with the itinerary for the, for open schedules, practices. Then each team needs about a good solid month to get football ready. Not everybody had the same practice schedule, so that was a big issue. But the week 1 takeaways I had, I would think the defenses would be ahead of the offenses, which we kind of seen that. And the thing we didn't talk about last week that I really want to kind of get into a little bit this week possibly, and seeing how these things are coming to fruition is these kids that are in the transfer portals and where they wound up and how it's affecting the offenses, mainly because a lot of them are quarterbacks and whatnot. You have a lot of kids that are moving around. So I think a good site to go check that out is 24/7 Sports. If you want to check out kids that have transferred that are going to have an impact on some of these programs. And me, I'm going to be heavily involved in the ACC, SEC, and the Big 12. That's where I'm going to spend the majority of my time in college football this year, just because of the information that's going to come out. I think the bigger conference is going to have a little bit more accurate information. You don't have to dig as hard. But, we're going to find value in the smaller games too. But for me, it's going to be the ACC, SEC, and the Big 12.
And, of course, Big Ragoo, longtime Florida State supporter. So not surprising, ACC, one of the conferences on his radar every year in college football. And you're absolutely right. I mean, it was definitely defenses ruling in the first week of the season, at least in terms of the FBS matchups. DJ Big Boss, how did your bets work out last week? What were some of the observations of the games that played out last week for you?
And I had a good weekend last weekend with college football. Not only just because it was on, but I was on the money on a lot of my bets. But it was a lot of theories out there that I've been having a lot of recent conversations with about some of the things you spoke about, and you enlightened me to some of the college football news. But one of the major things that I'm very contrarian on, and I don't know where I get it. I always fall on this side of the tree, and people look at me and say I'm crazy. But Big Ragoo can attest that sometimes I don't be as crazy as it sounds. Too, Ian. I don't be as crazy as it sounds. When it really goes down. But the whole thing right here about preparation in college football, it could be a little overrated, man. When you're talking college football, these are guys that are already brushed up. They're not out there teaching fundamentals. All they're doing when they get together is doing reps and reps and reps, just so everybody can stay on the same page and gel a little bit. And it doesn't take a long time to do that. And a lot of the work done in college football is done in the classroom. It's done in your individual groups. A lot of these guys still been meeting with just the offensive line coach and a couple linemen, social distancing, working out. You better believe they've been doing this the whole time. Don't let the smooth taste fool you. All the mishaps that you've seen in the games this past week are the same things you get every year when you begin football. It's a contact sport. You're going to get fumbles. You're going to get fatigue. You're going to get all those elements. Like this thing has been going on for years in the same fashion every time. One of the greatest parts about college football is that you bringing in new talent each year. You changing the table every year, opposed to the NFL where the table kind of stays the same. Things just kind of move around the table. So I'm big contrarian on that. Another thing we talked about was the option and preparing for the option. And a lot of people, by rule, you usually take a team that's been off 1 week when they go against a team that's playing the option because they have more time to prepare. But if you got a decent defense, the option is one of the simplest plays that you can assign assignments and teach in 1 week. Teams don't gear up for the option. They wait till it come. If they solid, they practice it and they move forward. Like I think sometimes as cappers, we underestimate some of these athletes, man. These guys are tough. They build strong. These young guys, they know all the loopholes. They didn't practice at the parks. They didn't, and technology enhanced so much. They got machines, weights at home. So I don't see a big disconnect. I see a lot of the normal stuff that happens week 1, and I'm looking forward for all that to kind of settle out, because once we get to week 3 or 4, it's no more excuses. Only thing that I could say could be a concrete thing going into this is that coaches don't put all their plays out there on the first week. You build a solid small playbook and you build on it as you go through the season. So that's not unusual either. So being that these guys had a small playbook to learn, they had a small period of time to do it, they had to play together as a team, they may have gelled a little more than we think, in these situations. And I've been winning on that. I've been winning on Arkansas State having 5 returning D linemen. I've been winning on teams that have, a lot of seniors on there, because it takes good coaching, it takes good leadership in times like these to prevail. So that's just my take on the weekend. I know it's a little bit long, but that's just my take.
No, it's true. I mean, continuity is more important than ever right now at a time like this. Coaching staff, are the coordinators back? How much personnel player turnover is there? When did you find out who you were playing in the first game of the season? Especially, as you mentioned, when it comes to Navy and Army when it's such a much more difficult preparation for that style of offense, aka the triple option. Go ahead, yeah, Big Ragoo, go ahead.
Well, just to add, and I'm going to get to Conor real quick, just to add to DJ's point, the big thing was earlier on with the scheduling, usually you have those cupcake games early in the season.
Yes.
And that gives these guys time to kind of gel and get together and get things going. But you know what? They're all in the same boat. So basically, it's going to be a talent thing, a coaching thing, and they're going to put it out there in the field and see where the chips are going to fall. So whoever's a little more prepared, like Ian said, a little more practice time, or the guys are going to have the edge.
Yeah, an old hockey term, forecheck, backcheck, paycheck. And that's exactly it. Some of these small programs, they don't mind getting their butts whooped by Alabama and Auburn and Notre Dame and whoever else, because they know, hey, we're going to get a fat check out of it. And we get a little exposure out of it as well. At least we get our program on television, even if it is us losing by 30 or losing by 40. Conor Mack, finally, let's get to you. What did you think of the first week of games, and how did you do betting-wise, and what were some observations that stuck out to you?
Well, you guys nailed it. It's tough to follow these three guys. You guys got to it good. Betting was good, 1-1 on what I put out. That SMU boss nailed it. Gotta salute him on the under. I was a little thought that game go over. I thought SMU would probably hang up 50. Didn't. But takeaways, Memphis played okay, but Arkansas State covered like we all kind of agreed. And the under 74 was money too. Yeah, I got to just take away what you guys said, that that preparation is just going to be huge. Just a little bit here in the beginning. Just practices. It's such a strange thing, because even when we cap college football, unlike pro football, there's so many teams, and we've capped and known them. Even the turnover, we kind of know from last year what's going, already before we know players. Not everyone does, but you always go brush up and look up on some. So it's games sometimes can be a little more easier to cap in college football. That's why I've always had a lot of success betting it than pro football. Nothing against pro. I just say in college you can find really good spots, I think, in multiple games and have big weekends. So, but this weekend I just looked at the big takeaway: Navy, just them not the coach after the game saying we didn't hit it all, we didn't do anything, and we got blown out. It was just kind of like, wow, just shocking. Just they just took it right in the teeth. So
Navy backers would have liked to have heard the coach say that before the game. We didn't practice, we weren't ready to go. Come on, why don't you tell everybody that before the game? We could have loaded up on BYU here. Like, come on, throw us a ball.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought right after listening to it. So that's about it. You guys nail it. So, but good kind of first week. So that's about it.
Yeah, and we're going to get to a couple of the key matches. We're not going to obviously get through every Saturday game or every game this week on this show. We're going to definitely get through every game on Saturday morning. We'll go rapid fire through each game, but we'll hit some of the marquee games on tonight's show. Just some initial thoughts, initial opinions on the week's games, the bigger matchups. I will say this, one thing we're seeing, and this doesn't surprise me, we see this after the first week of college football in a normal season without a pandemic going on. People react to what they saw. If a team looked really, really impressive in that first game, they're going to run to the window and bet them the second week. Look at Army. Look at all the money they're taking already this week against UL Monroe. That number's just been a one-way move from Army, I believe, minus 16 or so. They opened. They're up to minus 19 now in that game against UL Monroe on Saturday. South Alabama, they can't get enough of South Alabama after getting the 2-touchdown underdog outright upset win against Southern Miss on national TV last Thursday night, and now they're betting South Alabama hand over fist at home against Tulane this weekend. Tulane was 12-point favorites when that opened, down to 8.5, 9. There's even some 8s at some spots now with Tulane. So all the money's coming in there on South Alabama after what they saw last week in that particular football game. So there's just a couple. Those are just two examples right there. Even Texas State, a better showing against SMU, I guess you could say, than people thought. And now they're betting at Texas State a little bit in the in-state battle against the Roadrunners. Meet UTSA on Saturday. So, again, that's not a surprise to me that we see these teams that impressed in the first game of the season, and people are so enamored by that they're just going to bet them again right away here in week 2. Let's get into some games. UAB Miami. We'll start there. That's the Thursday night game. to begin the week. Very interesting handicap here. We've got Miami, 2-touchdown favorite here, 14, 13.5 in some spots as well, depending on where you shop. The total currently 54.5 in this game. Miami, it was really a pathetic year for them, for their standards. I mean, for the Miami Hurricanes to have the season they had last year was a disappointing year. Their offense was stuck in mud. It's now year 2 for Manny Diaz, the head coach. They had the terrible quarterback play for the longest time. Miami, neither quarterback really settled in and played well at any point. But now they bring in, of course, the Houston Cougar transfer, De'Aaron King. He's been around a long time now, dual threat quarterback, hoping to breathe some life into this Miami team on the offensive side of the football. We'll see if they're able to get what they hope they are expecting out of them. We'll have to see. I think this could be a work in progress because they also have a new offensive coordinator, Rhett Lashley, and all of a sudden Miami, they're going to, again, we've seen Jim Harbaugh's tried this, and hasn't necessarily stuck with it for a full season. We've seen some of these archaic coaches try to get with the times, right? Get with the program. It's 2020. Stop with the 1980s football. Get into these up-tempo, spread offenses, push the pace, try to be a little bit more diverse, and apparently Miami's going to try that this year. And certainly they hope De'Aaron King's the quarterback that can execute this more spread-based, up-tempo offense this season. But, it's probably going to be a work in progress here for Miami. Let's keep in mind, a big part of their offense last year, for any good it was DJ Dallas, the running back, KJ Osborne, their top receiver. Both of them are gone. Have to replace them. They still have a couple of decent wide receivers still. The offensive line was not very good last year. That's still going to have to show that they've improved. Apparently, they do have a good amount of returning production there, but remains to be seen. And now you got to go up against a UAB team that plays some defense. They have played defense for years under Bill Clark. And we'll have to see if they are able to do that again here. They were sloppy against Central Arkansas in their last game for sure. Very sloppy was UAB. They're not going to be happy with that performance one bit. And they're still an offense that's, the ham and egger. I like using that term. They're a ham and egger offense. Their quarterback is okay. He's not great. Spencer Brown is a phenomenal running back for them, but they do rely on their defense still. From a situational standpoint, Miami hasn't played yet. UAB has. Is that an edge you make think for UAB with having a game under their belt already? I actually went and looked. Teams that have played, or teams that are playing their second game and are up against a team playing their first game, they're actually sub 50% ATS the last several years. So it's not that huge advantage that some people might think, having the extra game, playing a team that hasn't played yet. You're sub 50 ATS from a percentage standpoint. So if that's your only reason for betting UAB, my advice is find other reasons, find other angles to back UAB in this game. It's a tough one for me because UAB plus the points was my first lean here. But then I went back and looked, guys, they've not stepped up in class well against FBS or against Power 5 teams. They've had some real ugly performances the last couple of seasons against Power 5 teams. And I'm not sure I trust them here. And it is still a short week as well for UAB, playing on a Thursday on the road here. So it's a tricky handicap for me. As of right now, it's not a game I've pulled the trigger on, and it probably won't be a game I pull the trigger on before kickoff. Let's start with you, Conor, this time. UAB Miami, what's your initial thoughts?
My initial thoughts were same as you. I was like, wow, I'm looking at these 14 points with UAB. But digging deeper, they don't step up against better competition. They haven't played well. They went 3-5 on the road last year. Just not very good. They got blown out in the conference championship game, 49-6.
Don't remind me.
What's up, Ragoo?
I said, don't remind me of that one.
Oh, okay.
That's the thing about our show, guys. We will talk about our losses on this show, believe me.
Oh,
That's one thing we will do.
And those teams will just hearing it brings it up in our ear. We hear that just like Ragoo said, it just reminds us. So, but I like King here coming over transfer. I'm leaning more towards Miami. I'd like it under 14 points, but that'd be my first early lean in this Thursday game. I like Miami at home. UAB doesn't play well on the road. They don't step up against competition. That'd just be my first look on this Thursday game. I haven't pulled the trigger either. Like I said, I'd like to get under 14, but we'll see how the week goes on. I don't think it's going the other way, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think there will be buyback is what is definitely like it's already moved down from, I believe, 16, 15 and a half down to 14, 13 and a half here on UAB, but I don't think it gets lower than that. There will be some buyback, I think, on Miami if this hits below 2 touchdowns with them. If you can lay less than 2 touchdowns, I think there's going to be people out there that would be interested in doing that for sure. And look, UAB had penalties, they had turnovers. They were a disaster against Central Arkansas last week. You can get away with it against Central Arkansas, but if you're going to have those mental mistakes, false start penalties, be sloppy with the football, inconsistent quarterback play again for UAB last week. If you do that now against Miami, I know Miami had a down season, and it's with the exclamation point being losing to Florida International and Louisiana Tech at the end of the season last year. Miami, just the low point for them. But still, you make those mistakes against them, they'll show up more than they did against Central Arkansas. DJ Big Boss, what's your first thoughts here? Blazers, Hurricanes.
Well, I'm loving taking UAB in this one and give me the points on this one. Think about it. Derek King played 4 games last year and quit. So he hasn't took a snap in over a year and some change. And it's going to take some time for all of that to get together over there. They're going to a spread formation. I think we seen Georgia Tech last year switch over to a spread formation. It takes some good athleticism, takes a lot of linking to get everything to get the moving that way. And although Manny Diaz, he does have the backing of the fans, he has the coaching staff, but he went about things kind of wrong. He's letting the offensive line just, mature. So he didn't really address the issues that they had going on the offensive line. Now, at wide receiver and running back in Florida, you can find a wide receiver and running back a dime a dozen. Secondary over there, you can find those a dime a dozen. So I can see why he looked past those spots, but not addressing the offensive line and only coming in with a couple transfers, some impact transfers on the defensive line. So it will be pressure up front, but the linebackers core is questionable. The secondary core is questionable, but you're in the state of Florida where you got a lot of good athletes. They love Manny Diaz over here, so you can't count the guy out. But 14 points, he couldn't do that last year. I wouldn't expect him to do that this year. I don't know. Maybe they just a little over aroused about Derek King going over there, which I think is probably a match made in heaven. I think they seeked him earlier last year for this year. So something's going on there to why he chose to come on over there so early in last season. So that kind of worries me. But this Miami team wasn't on one full accord last year. What makes us think it's going to get that much better this year? It's going to be a lot of new additions. Now, they may do well and get some exciting players that we don't know about. And that's the chances you got to take to beat me. Give me all the points I can get. I'll take that 14 now before it goes any lower. And UAB, 21 seniors, man. 21 seniors. I think it's a 9 on offense. They're synced. And, first week out, they did have a lot of turnovers. They opened up a little dominant. Then they, had a couple turnovers, minus the turnovers and the points that they gave up on those turnovers. They still got a good win. They put a lot of points on the board. Their stats look decent. They ran the ball. They threw the ball a little bit. So running the ball is going to be a little different against Miami's defense, of course. But I think they have their way in some spots just on Miami coming out the first week. And I think they cleared at 14 points. And I also lean under in this one. These are really 2 defensive teams. Like when 2 defensive teams meet, I usually go under. Oh, yeah. And when 2 offensive teams meet, I usually go under as well. But
that's what I thought you were going to say.
But that's just how it goes, man. When 2 high-powered teams meet, they kind of diffuse each other, and you might get an underscore when everybody's anticipating a lot of points. But teams that play good defense, they play good defense. Some of them don't even worry about offense because they playing good defense. So that keeps the under in the play. But, it could change. But I'm definitely that's going to be my first pick of this week is going to take those points, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I'm with you on this under as well. I would lean in that direction as well. Look, I got sucked in last year by Michigan in the same position that Miami is right here going into this game, talking about, wow, we're going to open it up. We're going to have this big, explosive, high octane, up tempo, push the pace offense with Shea Patterson last year and Josh Gaddis, the new offensive coordinator there at Michigan. And I just got sucked into it because I thought, let's take advantage now. First game, totals are going to be low. Michigan totals are going to be as low as they've usually been. And we can take advantage of the pace increase. They're talking about how good this offense looks in practice. And they came out there against, I think it was Middle Tennessee in the first game. And that offense struggled for a good 2.5, 3 quarters. And that offense never really was up tempo the whole year because Jim Harbaugh is an old, dinosaur. He's stuck in his ways. He's stubborn as an ox. You can't change him, And as soon as that offense started struggling, he says, nope, guess what? Run the football on first down, run the football on second down, the same old crap we see from Michigan every year because he's stubborn that way. And then it went back to just the same plodding, run-heavy offense that Michigan's been for the last several years. I'm worried Miami's like that. Diaz could be one of these Jim Harbaugh clones. What if De'Aaron King and this Rhett Lashlee coordinated offense that's supposed to go up tempo, and they struggle early on? He's going to pull back the reins, I worry, and here we go again, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, hand it off, no creativity, no ingenuity, and once again the offense is stuck in mud, just like it was last year. That's the fear I have with over the total, just simply betting over here because I'm hearing, we're going fast. We got De'Aaron King now. Well, hold on now. It's a new system for him, new program, new offensive coordinator. It's all got to gel. It's got to gel with how many practices? I got the number of practices here in front of me for every team. Miami, when you look at them, they've had 4 practices. Okay, they've had a few, but that's not a lot. There's some teams that have had 10 or more practices. So, again, can this all gel? First game of the season against a UAB team. The strength is their defense. That remains to be seen. Big Ragoo, what's your thoughts here? Interesting handicap here, UAB Miami.
You guys are selling my points exactly all the way across the board. I'm only looking one way in this game. I'm looking at the total, and I'm looking at it dead under. Reason being because when we talked about the first game, we talked about maybe when Central Arkansas was playing UAB, we figured UAB would come out of the gates a little bit strong in that one offensively speaking, but to kind of equalize it with the defense with that big number. But the turnovers came into play. But they're not going to get the conversions they got on third down against Central Arkansas. They're not going to get them against Miami. So I look for them to regress definitely on the offensive side. And their defense, going up against Miami's offense, this is not Miami's first rodeo with offensive struggles. They've been up against it for the last 4 or 5 years offensively. They haven't been able to put points on the board. It's hurt them in the postseason. So they're definitely looking for answers, with the coaching changes, OC changes, the quarterback changes. It's going to be a little bit of it's going to be a little while before Miami starts probably scoring a ton of points, working through the new system. I like UAB here to kind of keep, their defense on the field probably a little bit longer than they would against Central Ark. But at the same time, going the other way, I think that Miami's going to have their issues, scoring points up against this decent, UAB, like you said, UAB, they live on the defensive side. They do struggle away from home. They do struggle against FBS schools, Power 5 schools. So I think that's going to be the equalizer here. I think both teams are going to have trouble putting points on the board. So I know 54 is not a big number, but it's a good enough number to kind of get underneath the total, I think. So I'm going to lean under in this game.
All right, Big Ragoo leaning under the total, 54.5 with UAB and Miami, the Thursday night matchup. Let's go to Saturday. We'll hit a couple of the games on Saturday. We still have about 30 minutes left in the show. How about this one? Interesting ACC matchup to get the day started. Noon Eastern, Syracuse and North Carolina. As I like to say, North Kakalaki. I've got to thank Petey Pablo for coming up with that, and I've been using it ever since. We've got North Carolina. Exactly, DJ Big Boss. You know what I'm talking about. North Carolina minus 22. 65.5 the total here in this game. Look, maybe this is the one game of this entire board, weekend. Look, I'm very, very trepidatious and hesitant with overs early in the season. This is the one over of this entire week that's kind of caught my eye here, Syracuse and North Carolina, because you know what you get with Syracuse. We've seen Dino Babers here now, head coach for years. It's this breakneck, run a play as quickly as you can, get to the line of scrimmage as quickly as you can, rapid up-tempo offense. And this offense last year was grounded. Syracuse just had a huge fall off. Their offense fell off a cliff essentially last year. Remember, Dungy left. Tommy DeVito took over at the quarterback spot, and their offensive line was just a disaster. I mean, the opposing defensive fronts, they treated Tommy DeVito like a human pinata last year. They were just slamming that guy all over the football field. The good news is, at least they've got returning experience back there. Now, you could say it was a bad O-line last year. How good can the returning experience be if it's bad returning experience? But you got to think they can improve somewhat. DeVito now is second year as a starter now with Syracuse, has nowhere to go but up, in my opinion, with this offense. And at least they're going to go very, very fast up tempo, as they always do. And the North Carolina team, they look really good on both sides of the football. You got to give Mac Brown a ton of credit. I wasn't giving North Carolina much hope for his first season. I thought it would take time. But, boy, they had a tremendous first season under Mac Brown. They, of course, gave Clemson everything they could handle last year. It was a very good year for North Carolina. Sam Howell came onto the scene and had an awesome year, and now he's definitely in that Heisman Trophy conversation because he had a great year last year, and now they're expecting him to probably be even better here in his second full season as the starting quarterback. There's a lot to like here for North Carolina. Their offense has playmakers. They have a great offensive line that's very experienced, getting a lot of those guys back. Defense should be pretty good, but Syracuse should, I think, improve a little on offense. The problem for Syracuse here on defense for them is going to be, I like their secondary. Their secondary has two really good corners, but their defensive line and their linebacking core, the front seven's been gutted. It wasn't a great pass rush last year, and it could even be worse this year with all of the departures, especially along that defensive line for Syracuse. There's also a coordinator change here, a defensive coordinator change as well for Syracuse coming into this season. So there's a lot of concerns here right now for them being able to stop this high-octane UNC offense. I also considered laying the points with North Carolina, but I'm not in a rush to lay 22.5. The team's not used to this kind of pressure and expectation. Now people expect them to be one of the upper-tier programs in the ACC this season, and now you're laying 22.5 points in your first game, and you didn't have any practices. North Carolina, one of the teams that did not have any practices prior to this first game. So it is going to be something that's challenging for this Tar Heels team going into this game, potentially from that standpoint. I would want to go against them. I still lean because Syracuse certainly has a long way to go, especially on defense. I think they're really going to have a tough time getting any pass rush on Howell and that offensive line of the Tar Heels. So my first thought was over the total here, 65.5. It looks like there was a chance of showers for Chapel Hill Saturday, but it's going to be very slight. The weather should hold off, and most of the rain is going to be late afternoon, and that's important. When you check these weather forecasts, make sure you do the hourly forecast because this is a noon game, Eastern time in Chapel Hill Saturday. Most of the rain in the forecast for Chapel Hill Saturday is going to come late in the day. The game will be over by then. So I think it'll still be mostly a dry forecast for that game. Anyway, I like it over the total. I think we'll get some points there. That's the one over I like this week. I'm pulling back the reins on overs other than that one game. Let's start with DJ this time. Syracuse, North Carolina, a good matchup in the ACC.
Oh, that's a nasty sandwich you got right there, Ian. Syracuse was just distasteful last year. I love Mac Brown and everything they're doing over there in North Carolina, but laying those many points, that's distasteful as well. So I couldn't jump on either side of that right there. I have to see what's going on in Syracuse. Syracuse, there's no reason. I know as college football bettors, we like to stick on the side of tradition, especially when coach has been around for a year. But there's no real reason for them to jump back on the horse and that they fell off, and there was no real reason for them to fall off the horse. So I think there's some things to be explained over there, but not 22 points worth of it. Even though I love Mac Brown and everything, but they were North Carolina was really fueled at the beginning of the season. They had their peaks and valleys and stuff at some point, but they played some really good ball. And if I had to make a bet on it, I'd probably just go ahead and lay the points. But I definitely see a little interest on the side on the total over there. 65 is a little high, and I don't know about an over. If you can explain the over right there, how does Syracuse score points? Mac Brown and them over there, they don't lack too much on defense. They play ball all the way around. So, and it's not like they just high flying, throwing in the air. They go out and earn all their yards, on the ground, and they're like a balanced offense. So I don't think that it gets over 65 in that game. They play with a little respect in there. Syracuse, Division I team, they're gonna hit the field as men. You know what I mean? But when it goes down the line, North Carolina is going to be too much pressure for them. So if Syracuse can hold them off the scoreboard for just a little bit at the beginning, then there we go. That's our under right there. So I like the under in that one, but I wouldn't bet it yet. I'm just leaning there. I wouldn't bet it yet, but nasty game right there.
All right, nasty game. Yeah, like I say, I'm cautious with overs, but this is the one because Syracuse does have that quick strike ability, and North Carolina definitely does. And Syracuse, I think the only wave of their defense that I really like is their secondary, but their pass rush is lacking, and there's going to be time, I think, for Howell to throw the ball. Connor Mack, are you going to get involved, and do you have any initial leans or thoughts with Syracuse UNC?
Yeah, I'm pumping the brakes, on the side and the total here. 22.5 points. Right now, I love what Mac Brown's doing with North Carolina. He had a really good year last year. Sam Howell, just what a season. He had 38 touchdowns, 6 or 7 picks. Unreal. So I just can't see Syracuse covering that. It's a total layoff for me. I have no feel right now for the first week of the season. It's just a tough one for me to go at.
I think it's true. I mean, all I've heard leading into this season, not all I've heard because college football has been, we didn't even know if there was going to be college football, but a lot of the people that are talking college football, media pundits, people writing that are scribes for college football, talking about the potential for North Carolina. And it seems like they're that hot team. They're that hype team right now. And hype teams laying 22.5 in the first game of the season. Not something I'm interested in. I lean in that direction, but I'm not pulling the trigger week one with that burden of expectation suddenly now on this Tar Heels program. Big Ragoo, what do you say here? UNC Syracuse.
That's a no go for me either way. When I seen the 20, I was like, I started peeling back the game a little bit, and I know that Syracuse has a bunch of new moving parts, and they are the hurry-up style offense with Babbers, and we know NC can score points. But are both these defenses that bad that they're going to put up that kind of points, or you think it's more tempo related? Me personally, I just think Syracuse is a bad football team, and the only way this game in my book goes over is that Carolina's going to have to score at least 6 touchdowns, and then the other team's going to have to score at least 3 touchdowns. So I don't know, and I don't think they're going to best them. I'm not going to say they're not going to best them, but I'm not going to put faith in Carolina to score better than 3 touchdowns to cover the number. So if they falter, if North Carolina falters, this game goes nowhere near being over because I don't think Syracuse is going to put up the points. I think go ahead.
Yeah, that's the big question because I've heard a lot of people excited about this. The Syracuse offense is going to be better, but again, we've not seen this. We've only seen a couple of practices for all these teams. Putting it into a game situation and putting it into practice in an actual game against a really good opponent, that's going to be the true telltale sign.
Let me say something, Ian, about the hype teams, right? And this goes on with college football every year. Every year there's 25 hype teams. The top 25s are all hypes. How many years do we see so much hype behind so many teams? And by the end of the year, how many hype teams are left? It's about 6 hype teams left by the end of the season. So, that's the luxury to bet in college football early is that they do go after the hype. And, apples is apples and oranges is oranges. And when you can figure out the difference, then you can beat the hype. So I try to stay away from that hype stuff, Ian, because, I'm a Notre Dame fan. Every year I can tell you 100 reasons why we're going to win the national championship. And every year we don't win the national championship.
Ian, let's get DJ to break down the Notre Dame game for us for the next.
Yeah, actually, you know what? That was actually good. That was the next game on my menu here.
That's the segue.
You gotta go.
Yeah, Duke
and Notre Dame. Now you touching my heart.
20-point favorites in this game against Duke. Yeah, at 2:30 p.m. 54.5 the total. I will tell you this right now. If I'm betting a side in this game, it's Duke plus the points. I will not bet against Cutcliffe as a dog. I won't. I just will not do it.
Yeah.
Now the question's
I'm
going
with
to be, you got a new transfer quarterback from Clemson, Chase Bryce, coming in here. Was backing up to Trevor Lawrence the last couple of years. Obviously wasn't going to start there, so he goes to Duke. He's a perfect fit for David Cutcliffe's offense. But the question remains, how good of a fit is it going to be week one, first game of the season, with a brand new team and getting used to a new coaching staff, new receivers, new offensive line, all of that against a Notre Dame team that's got pretty big aspirations this season. You hear some people that follow Notre Dame football, they think they're a playoff contender this year, even more so now with the Big Ten not playing, with that Pac-12. Who cares about the Pac-12? They don't do anything in the playoff anyway. But nevertheless, but with the Big Ten not playing, we'll at least give them due for the playoff discussion. But Notre Dame, and of course they bring back Ian Book. He's a very good quarterback, should be even better this year. It's a really, really interesting game. But I think Duke, the bottom fell out for them last year. The quarterback play was horrid. As bad a quarterback play as you could get for a football team last year was Duke. It's got nowhere to go but up. I lean to Duke, but I don't know I want to pull the trigger. I think I'm going to have to see them play a game first, especially on the road against a team like Notre Dame, before I can have more confidence. DJ, you're Irish. Let's hear it.
Let's go for it.
Let's go.
Hey, well, right off the back, I side with you on taking the points against Notre Dame. Rarely do I take Notre Dame minus 15 or more points, especially when at home. We always like to play with some type of respect. You'll see them close it down at the end. I've seen Kelly, if we're up on a team first half, he's letting the third and fourth string start the second half, so we don't play like that, and we never really have. Sometimes, we do just outpower some teams, or they give up, whatever, and it gets that high. But you got to beat me with that one. I'm not taking Notre Dame minus 20 nothing points. I don't really believe in Book. Book showed, and this is something I examined with Ghostin, all of them. They play the first year when they're young, and they listen to Kelly. They do what he say. It works well for them. The second year they come out, they try to add their little twist to it, or they start a few back and forth with Kelly and the system, and they don't play as well. Same thing happened to Book last year. I mean, he was a really tough kid. He came in there taking people's positions since he was young. Pinpointing passes and blue and gold game. This guy's been impressive for a long time. Then all of a sudden last year, he loses all his heart. He doesn't want to take off when it's time to take off. He doesn't want to get hit. And I've seen it firsthand. Him and Kelly, they were butting heads last year. Kelly told him, look, if you don't want to take no contact, first down quarterback sneak. You running the ball, you're going to get hit today. And because he tried to bring the toughness out of him, and Book folded, but Book numbers were so well on paper. If you look at him on paper, he's just a stud in the air, running and all this stuff. But the guy's a little confused in the head. Unless him and Kelly mended they bond and back on the same page, I don't expect much for him. Be looking for some second string quarterback or somebody to come out of the blue and take over the offense after he has some injury or something crazy goes on with Book. So I'm not that high on Book. I'm definitely not high on the 20 points. The line setters kind of know what they're doing. When they set the total at like 54, 55, I believe it is, and the line is at 20 plus points. You asking them to beat them by 3 touchdowns and under 54. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. You're not going to get both of those to happen on the same accord. It's kind of a trick play right there. So best value to me on the whole game is taking that 20 points. But I'll tell you this. I'm going to give the secrets of the Notre Dame thing. Whenever we at home, first series or two, guaranteed touchdowns. It's usually a 7-0. If we don't get it on the first time go down, we usually get it on the second go down. If we don't get it by then, it's just going to be a tough game, period. But for the most part, when we plan a competition like this, we're going to score on either that first drive or the second drive. So, and over in the first quarter is something you might want to take a look into.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting because, again, Chase Bryce is with a new team, but it's a system and a scheme on offense he's familiar with. It's not going to be as big of an adjustment. One thing that really does concern me, because I'm leaning Duke here, and I mentioned that just now, but starting center out for Duke, Jack Wolabaugh, and now all of a sudden you're going to have a backup center along the O-line. You're going to have Chase Bryce, new starting quarterback, and that's going to be an issue. To DJ's point about Ian Book, I'll say this. I kind of gushed about him too much. He was good last year. He wasn't necessarily great at times. His numbers look great. He's got like 34 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. And when you see a touchdown with a 34-6 TD to INT ratio, you think, wow, what a season. But then you see the eye test. And DJ Big Boss, I know, is a big believer in that. Watching the games, what does he see with his own 2 eyes? And he sees a guy that's sometimes inaccurate, misses a wide open receiver, right? We saw that a few times last year.
And Kelly even pulled him last year during the game because he played so bad. So, it's nothing that people don't know. Of course, they try to hide it in the media, but to me as a fan, it's a sore thumb with what's going on with Book. Unless they mend that situation, he got to have faith in Kelly. Kelly's been known to be like a cruel guy, and a tough coach, but an excellent coach. Like he's up there with Belichick's one of his mentors. So, he's rough on those guys, and he's been getting the same results out of all these quarterbacks that's coming in as freshmen and backups, and they're doing so well that first year, and they just like a balloon, just all the way to where they transfer somewhere else and everything else. But one more thing I must say about Duke in this competition as well. Duke leading the ACC in secondary anyhow. So Book is going to be getting put to test throwing that ball in the air. So expect a lot of short passes early. Kelly's not going to go test what's deep in the sea if he could just catch a fish right there in the pond. So he's going to expect some short passes, some running and stuff, but expect Notre Dame to score on the first 1 or 2 possessions.
Yeah, they have a good defense. They lost a couple key pieces, up front in terms of their pass rush. I know the sack leader, Owusu Koromoa, they lost him from last year's Notre Dame team, and he was a big piece of that team on the defensive side of the football. So there's some pieces there. You're right. Duke's strength is going to be their defense. Their defense does look like it's going to be capable. And last year, their defense, I don't think it was as bad as it looked, but when your offense is going 3-and-out punt, 3-and-out punt, 3-and-out punt, nobody's defense is going to play well because you're gassed. You're on the field all game. Quentin Harris literally basically sewered that team defensively because he couldn't put a drive together as the quarterback. And you could have to believe he's got nowhere to go but up at the quarterback position for Duke with Chase Bryce, the Clemson transfer. It's just a question of how long will it take him. It may not be, all of a sudden he's got it in the very first game of the season with a new program. Connor, what's your thoughts here? Good to have you back. The tech gremlins, StreamYard gremlins, YouTube gremlins, whatever you want to call it. Got him for a few minutes, but he's back with us. Duke and Notre Dame, what's your initial take?
My initial take is I like the points with Duke. I watch every Notre Dame game, and I've never laying more than 3 touchdowns with Notre Dame at home. Book was good, but like you said, very inaccurate, very up and down. It's crazy what you said. I didn't realize how good his stats were, that 34-6. So really looking at it, that's how well his year was. Duke won in 2016 here. I think Notre Dame, as Boss was saying, they're going to take it real slow. They love running the rock. Kelly, that's one of his favorite things to do, short pass. Every once in a while they'll throw that. They throw those screens. They'll throw a bomb to one of their best wide receivers. So I'm leaning Duke getting the 20. Is it 20.5 or is it up to 21? Is it still 20.5?
Current line right now is 20. 20.5. It's bouncing around those 2 numbers. Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
I'd love 21. I would really consider pulling that trigger on 21.
I totally agree. If I could get an extra 1 and 1.5, that would be great.
But it's definitely a strong lean for sure for me. It would be Duke plus the points or nothing at all. By the way, I forgot to mention this about Miami, and it's another thing because I know I'm always getting the heebie-jeebies and worried when I'm laying 13 or 14 or want to lay that many points with the Hurricanes. They're 2-14 ATS last 16 tries as a touchdown or more favorite. That is just a hideous track record.
You haven't made money on Miami if you've been in since 2016 every year.
Exactly. So, Big Ragoo, Duke and Notre Dame, where are you sitting in this game?
Duke Notre Dame. Listen, the nail on the head is the quarterback scenario for Duke. Danny Dimes' departure had a real bad down year last year. Now, you don't think that Cutcliffe is whispering this kid's ear from Clemson? They're having conversation about coming on over, plug him right in. This guy's a quarterback guru, and he'll have this kid up to par in no time. If the kid's talented, and that's to remain to be seen, but I'm sure he is if he got recruited by Clemson. He's going to be a pretty good ball player in that spot, and I think Cutcliffe will get him up to speed. Defensively sound already. 7 of the top 9 tacklers are coming back on defense for Duke. And I think Notre Dame put a pretty good ass whooping on them last year. So that's going to be fresh on their minds too. So I think they're going to outperform their performance last year. And 21 points, it's a lot of points to be given up with Notre Dame in this particular spot right here. So I like Duke in the points. That'll be a strong lean for me.
All right, liking Duke in the points. Again, this is Tuesday night. We're doing this show. We're back Saturday morning, so we'll definitely have everything locked in, confirmed by then. But definitely at least early in the week, we're giving you our initial opinions, initial thoughts, just some things we're considering betting. I will mention the 2 that I have bet at the end of this show, that I've already bet as of right now for this weekend's card coming up in just a bit. We'll do some quick hitters for the last 10 minutes or so. We'll stay on for about 10 or 15 minutes. We'll go a little past 10, but not much more Eastern time than that. UL Lafayette, Iowa State. This is an interesting one to talk about because we've got Iowa State here currently a 11.5 point favorite, 56.5 the total. They better be on their game. This Lafayette team was 10-3 last year. They've got a tremendous offense with Levi Lewis back at the quarterback position. They've got Ragland and back at the running back, and Trey Regis at the running back spot as well. This is a well-oiled machine of an offense that the Ragin' Cajuns have, no doubt about it, coming into this season. One of the great coaching jobs, Billy Napier. He's done a phenomenal job, had a great season last year with UL Lafayette. And nobody likes Iowa State and Matt Campbell as a coach more than me. I like backing Iowa State, but the one role they've not done good in is these early season non-conference games, laying points like this. They've struggled. They've barely gotten by in some of these games, to be honest with you. I like Brock Purdy. He's back at the quarterback spot. It's a team that relies on running the football a lot. They've still got a solid defense, although they lose some guys from that defense from last year. And now you're going to have to be on guard because this is not it's a Sun Belt team. I get it, but this is an offense that can move it. And they've shown the ability at times to do that, even against some upper echelon programs. So, I don't want to say upset alert, but this is not, as much as I love Iowa State, and I back them a lot, I'm not on them here. If I'm betting this game, I'm looking at the dog here on ULL plus the points. Big Ragoo, any thoughts here on this one?
I'm saying upset alert here, guys. Yeah, and I know Iowa State squoze out a lot of close games last year. A couple, 2-point, 1-point games. Maybe not FCS teams, but this is a special team, like you say. It's either App State or this team every year for that conference championship, and they're well coached, well-oiled machine. I think this could be a letdown spot for Iowa State here, the Cyclones. Not to say that they're going to lose the game outright, but they have a possibility to lose. I mean, what are we talking points-wise here? 12? I mean, that looks like a pretty solid play. First game out of the gate for a quality team going on the road. This game was in Lafayette. They'd probably be about a 6.5, 7-point favorite. So I give the benefit. I take the points here. On a hard lean to the dog.
Yeah,
with a little sprinkle. If I take this game, I'm definitely going to sprinkle something on the money line on the underdog.
Yeah, Iowa State's going to be probably what they usually are. They're usually a good ATS team in Big 12 conference play when they're an underdog. I love them as an underdog. They're a great underdog bet. They have been for years under Campbell. Even as a pick 'em, you can sometimes back them and they'll win and they'll cover. But then you get them in these double-digit favorite price range, and especially in these non-conference games, and that's where the struggles have been ATS for Iowa State, and they've got a very good offense. So even if Lafayette falls behind, they've got the offense, if they're down by 14 late, to get you that backdoor cover. So this is one of those take the points or pass games for me. Conor, what's your take here? ULL, Iowa State.
Totally agree, boys. I like Iowa State as a usually a dog at home. Big 10 play. Sorry, Big 12 play, as we say now. But 12 points. I got to take the Ragin' Cajuns. I backed them towards the end of last year. like you said, they went 10-3. I got to take the points. I love getting the points here. I just don't see Iowa State as a team that can, I don't know, just cover this type of game. Like we said, I like them as a dog. I like them as a pick 'em. I like them, when they're like a 3-point home dog to Penn State, a game like that. That's when I've liked to back them over the last few years. I don't want them as a double-digit favorite. Go Raging Cajuns. Lean that way.
All right, DJ Big Boss, are you feeling the Raging Cajuns? Are you feeling Cajun right now in this game or no?
I'm gonna follow the sauce, man. That's not one of the games I want to get into right there, but I'm gonna follow y'all with Louisiana Monroe on that one. But I'd like to know what Big Ragoo's gonna do with his Florida State Georgia Tech. Since I had to go on the stand about Notre Dame, I think we should put Ragoo on the stand about Florida State.
You had to do that, didn't you?
Here we go. All right, let's get Big Ragoo up to the mic. I'll tee you up first here, Big Ragoo.
Go ahead, brother.
I'll just give you the line here. 12.5 point favorite, Florida State over Georgia Tech. 53 the total. Look, Mike Norvell was a great hire. I think he's going to prove to be a great hire for Florida State. No question about that. But again, we're talking about a brand new coach. New systems, week 1 of the season, first week of the year. Are you going to be ready to hit the ground running? What I do like is that they've got skill position weapons. They've got a decent offensive line, and they've got, maybe this could be one of the better. Defense has been terrible in years for Florida State. They've got a defense this year. They should have a much better defense. This should be the best Seminoles defense, I think, of the last few seasons. It's not that difficult to be better than the Florida State defense of the last couple seasons, but this should be definitely a defense that's able to get a pass rush, able to get pressure, and able potentially to defend one-on-one down the field in their secondary. And if you've got those two combinations, that could be lethal here. The difference is this is year 1 for Norvell. For Georgia Tech, this is now year 2 for Jeff Collins. And Georgia Tech was the ultimate bet against team last year. They were tearing down Paul Johnson's triple option for years there at Georgia Tech. And here comes Jeff Collins inheriting a bunch of players that have no business running a triple option offense. And it was a disaster. It was a mess. It was a cluster bleep, last year for Georgia Tech. It had a dismal year. Now it's year 2. The team should be a little bit more settled in. I think they're further along in their rebuild and reshape the program than Florida State is. But I think Florida State's the uber more talented football team. So that's the conflict I have with this game. It's a game I want no part of betting. And I'll tee up Big Ragoo to give us his take because he follows Florida State as much, if not more than anybody, certainly of us four. What's your take? Seminoles opening their season in the Norvell era against Georgia Tech.
Well, my first thoughts were when Norvell showed up, there was some locker room issues that they had. I said, oh, shit, here we go now, right? Already, before we even get on the field, we're stirring the pot. But I think they kind of worked those things out, whatever they were at the time and point. So now we're talking football on the field. 10 guys back on defense, they're going to be solid there. Offensively speaking, I think they kind of got to get into Norvell's, way of thinking, playmaking abilities, which, he can ramp up offenses pretty quick. So anything was going to be better than what they put on the field last year. So that's a plus. Now, Georgia Tech, they do have 10 returning 10 returning starters on the offensive side. So they probably progress a little bit here. But the question here is athletes. And, the line's gone up from 11 to 12.5 in spots. I think anything less than 2 touchdowns, you'd probably be, I'm not going to say safe betting Florida State, but that would be a good lean for me. I would lean Florida State, anything less than 2 touchdowns here. But athletic ability, defensive-wise, offensive-wise, there's going to be some tough matchups for them. And the only thing is, are they going to be able to execute on the offense? How many practices have they had? Do you know that, Florida State this season so far?
Yes, that's a good. That's always something to keep in mind. Florida State 3 practices, Georgia Tech 6.
Yeah.
So very interesting. That's so Jeff Collins got some practice time.
Yeah,
with his group, which is good to see. That's obviously going to be a benefit.
Yeah, I'd lean Florida State anything less than 2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
half a unit.
Yeah, I hear you. I think Florida State's just a far deeper team, the better defensive team. Remember, Georgia Tech wasn't great defensively at all last year, and even worse probably offensively. So that's all stuff you got to overcome. Just say hello quickly. I'm going to say to people in the chat, Paco Healy, good to see you, great friend of ours. Viper MB, everybody else in the chat here joining us. Ben Sports 24/7, Detroit What, Manny R, Nilo, Jace Khan, all you guys in the chat. Thanks for joining us here on this first edition of the Early Week College Football Show. We'll be doing this Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern Time every week starting next week. Connor Mack, let's get your thoughts here. Yellow Jackets, Seminoles.
I've always loved taking Georgia Tech as a dog. It's just something I've always done. Last year, they were not good under first year coach. They just were not a good football team. Hopefully, year 2 they will be better. The only lean I'd go is with Georgia Tech. Nothing against your Seminoles, Ragoo, but
it's money. I don't care about them.
That would be my early lean. This one is a total watch. I want to watch these teams play. There's a lot of week ones with everything going on.
Exactly.
That I want to watch. But I'd lean Yellow Jackets. I'd take those 12.5 right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And Big Ragoo's got it right. You look after your bank account before you look after your fandom in sports betting. Absolutely. DJ Big Boss, there you go. You heard Big Ragoo's take on Florida State. What's your take?
I think I like the over in this one. Georgia Tech, they switched over to that spread offense and moved away from all that running and stuff, and took some time to get adjusted to. As the season progressed, as they played some lower level teams, it synced just a little bit, even though they weren't able to finish strong last year in their conference because it's pretty tough. But I think with some time, I think this team may at least come off to an explosive start in the first few games. So I kind of like Georgia Tech for that. And I'm kind of leaning the over in this one because, Norvell comes from over there where they do score a lot. So that, he should be able to create some solid running game. And they got the athletes there for him to throw the ball as well. So he should score for sure. And even though as bad as Georgia Tech's offense was, it did put up some points sometimes. And the defense were overwhelmed by the time on the field. So I don't think they got a true testament to how good they can be. On top of that, mid-season, they caught some injuries as well. So, I think Georgia Tech is worth the rebuild right here. Atlanta's a thriving city. So, they're going to have the support in bringing things around. One of the great things we didn't really, we mentioned it a little bit, but, the TV coverage on these games is going to be awesome. So, some of these games are going to be on prime time. I'm not sure about this one, but, this is going to be a game everybody's going to watch right here. A good game, but I think I'm leaning over in this one. That's all I can say. I'm not going to do nothing to Big Ragoo and his Florida State team, but we'll see what happens.
3:30 is the time for this game Saturday.
Muted. There we go. Yeah, 3:30 p.m. Eastern on Saturday should be interesting. You know what? Norvell is he knows offense. We saw what he did at Memphis, and he's going to bring that to Florida State. Here's my problem, though. I don't think he can – I don't know, at least as of right now, until at least I see this first game. I don't know if he's going to be able to bring that to Florida State with James Blackman as his quarterback, because all I've seen from this guy is he's in and he's out, he's hurt, he's inconsistent, he's back out again, he's hurt, he's inconsistent, he misses a wide open guy, he's hurt again, he's out of the line, the other guy comes in at quarterback. That's been the kind of run it's been for James Blackman at the quarterback spot for Florida State for these last couple of years. He's just not really got gelled. He's not really put it all together at the quarterback position for this Florida State team and program really at any point. And now it's going to be up to Mike Norvell to coax, the best play we've seen out of James Blackman, if it's possible. He's been there a long time, and I don't see progress out of the guy. So now it's up to Mike Norvell to try to get something out of James Blackman, who's been named the starting quarterback here for Florida State. All right, before we wrap up, I'm going to go around the horn to everybody. Games that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about, and or games that you've already pulled the trigger and bet something for Saturday that you want to mention what bets you're on already as of right now. Now's your chance. We'll start with you, Conor. We'll start with you this time. Games that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about, or games that you've already bet for this weekend that we haven't talked about. What do you like?
I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I'm looking at two dogs a little bit. I'm looking at UTEP with getting 43 at Texas, and I'm looking at, one sec, pull it up here, Coastal Carolina maybe getting 7 at Kansas, a little bit. I'm trying to dig into that game a little bit more. They practice a lot. Coastal Carolina's bringing back a lot of players. Kansas is barely practiced. I don't think they've even, maybe once. I think none. I'm looking at that game a little bit, and it started at 3.5. It's gone all the way up to 7. I think it could go higher. So if it gets to maybe 8.5, 9, I could pull the trigger. So those are 2 dogs I'm looking at. Hopefully by Saturday I'll have ready to go.
I can tell you. I can tell you right now, no argument for me on either. They are on my radar, both of those the sides. Look, UTEP. I know they were horrible last year. Don't get me wrong, but I saw Deion Hankins last week. I thought he was decent at least running that UTEP offense, and signs of life, signs of hope for Dana Dimmel, the head coach of that UTEP team that was just an embarrassment last year. That maybe they can move the football a little bit. And that's the key. It's not so much that they can score against Texas, because Texas is loaded. They're going to have a great team, don't get me wrong. But think about it. Texas in that game can win 49-7, and that is a score that cashes a ticket for UTEP. Think about that. 49-7, and UTEP can still cash in that game with that kind of final score. It's just a lot of points. Texas has bigger games in the Big 12 on deck. UTEP looks like, and the key is not so much that can they score or find the end zone or get field goals in this game. Can they at least get a few first downs, keep the clock moving, and keep Texas from possessing the ball more to give Texas those opportunities to run up the score and blow them out by 45 or more points. So I'm with you. I would look UTEP. I'll get to Coastal Carolina because I have a stronger thought on them as well later when I talk about the games at the end of that we haven't talked about from my standpoint. DJ Big Boss, any games we haven't talked about yet on the show or bets that you've already placed?
Only liking one bet so far. That's App State minus the 17. App State's coming back with a vengeance. The whole Corona thing and schedule changes and all that just leans more into their favor. This sort of a cupcake game versus Charlotte. So 17 points, I think, should be handled easily, especially in a first game like this. You know, App State doesn't have to throw the ball. They can run the ball, don't have to run the ball, they can throw the ball, and they play excellent defense every time. No way the Charlotte team comes in there and disrupts them by, it should be 22, I think. Gonna look a little bit further. I haven't laid it yet. Gonna look a little bit further to see why is it 17, but it should be one of those higher point spreads right there. But the location of the App State's stadium, the air or something over there changes things. So I don't know. I look a little bit further in, but I'm leaning hard on App State minus 17. It's the first thing jumped off the board to me.
And DJ Big Boss, you're getting the best of the number if you do like App State, because they opened 20.5 in this game. They're 17 now. So there's been a big move towards Charlotte, the 49ers, not San Francisco, the Charlotte 49ers getting 17 here in this game. You know what? Charlotte was one of those teams. I cashed a lot of overs with them this year. They were on one of these under the radar, over the total streaks last year. They had a good quarterback. He's back this year, but a big part of their offense and big component was Benny LeMay. He was a phenomenal running back for the Charlotte 49ers last year. He's gone now. And so replacing his production, it's kind of like the Kenneth Gainwell situation in Memphis. So much of their offense revolved around Benny LeMay with Charlotte getting touches and carries, and just like Gainwell with Memphis. And you just worry, is there going to be some growing pains the first game or two, having to adjust to not having this really outstanding and talented running back. For Charlotte to have a running back that good, that's rare. It's a rare commodity. It's like finding treasure. Buried treasure, diamond in the rough, so to speak. And Charlotte was able to find that with Benny LeMay. So can they replace that here? I kind of lean a little bit. I leaned initially to Charlotte, but that concerned me a little bit. And now the line move down to 17. I'm not getting the best of the number if I want Charlotte now. So I doubt I get involved now in this game from a side perspective in this one. App State does concern me. They've got to replace a lot on defense coming into this season. We'll see if they can do it. But again, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's going to be the issue for App State. I think people sense that and taking Charlotte. But again, if you haven't bet Charlotte yet, maybe you're a little bit late to the party. And if DJ likes App State, he's at least getting the best of the number right now on that App State Mountaineers side.
Let me say that App State's getting a lot of players back on offense too.
Yes,
so
they are loaded. Zach Attack.
That should be a big plus for them. And any time of the day, a team that runs 200 yards on the ground, I'm backing those kind of teams. Especially at home. So another, like I said, I'm gonna look a little further into it, but it sounds good about Charlotte, but not convincingly with this App State team. This is a tough team. I mean, they fought some battles last year in the conference championship, and this team is fired up for this season, and they're gonna come let all this out on this team. How many practices have App State had?
Practices. App State, let's just take a look here. 11 practices for App State. So they had a bunch, and Charlotte had, let me just take a look, 7. So there you go, 11 for App State, 7
Frontline winner, 7-11.
7-11.
I'll mention that trend as well in another game that I'm going to get to later on. Big Ragoo games we haven't talked about, or bets from those games that you want to mention right now that maybe you've already bet.
One game I had interest in that I wanted to maybe bet before the line moves, and I got a feeling it's going to go up. A team I bet on last year, Louisville Cardinals. Satterfield, a winning coach. This team, up until Satterfield showed up for his first season, they won 2 games the prior year. He flipped the team to go 8-5 and a bowl game win. Pretty impressive there. Mikhail Cunningham, he threw for 22 touchdowns and plus 2,000 yards, 482 yards rushing on the ground. They had the leading receiver in the ACC, over 1,000+ yards, had a solid running game. They played defensively. Defense was their Achilles heel for them. They did give up some points last year, but Western Kentucky, who's their opponent in this game, I think the line was like 11.5 and 58. Western Kentucky had a real disappointing season last year. And I just think the Hilltoppers might be in a little bit over their head with this Louisville team. They're pretty talented. So I like this team, Louisville. I'm looking at possibly getting on that number before it jumps up. 11.5 and 58. I'm going to lay the 11.5 with Louisville.
Goes up right there, yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? It's a great segue, Big Ragoo. And you notice I gave you a little thumbs up when you were talking about that game, because that was indeed one of my games. Western Kentucky and Louisville. I'm on the same side. I've already laid 11.5 with Louisville in this game against Western Kentucky. I was a big Louisville fan last year. And think about that. That was the first year under Scott Satterfield, who comes over from the aforementioned App State. He has to inherit an absolute shit show, essentially at Louisville, with the way the Bobby Petrino era crashed and burned 2 seasons ago. 2-10 straight up, 1-11 ATS 2 years ago for Louisville. That's what Scott Satterfield had to inherit. He had to inherit a program where the players quit down the stretch. That's what we saw. But Bobby Petrino, they wanted him out. He was gone. And even when the interim took over 2 seasons ago, they had already checked out mentally. I mean, that team gave no effort, no intensity, couldn't care less about their play on the football field down the stretch. Satterfield had to rebuild intensity, compete level, focus, discipline, all of this stuff last season, and to go from 2-10 to 8-4 in the regular season, plus the bowl win against Mississippi State out of the SEC, not a chop liver bowl opponent by any stretch. To be able to do that was phenomenal. This year, he's got most of his offense back. Big Ragoo mentioned it. Mikhail Cunningham, who I thought played well last year. The offense carried Louisville. The one issue Louisville had last year, even in that great 8-5 turnaround, was their defense couldn't get many stops. It was a really, really tough year for the defense. They had to win a lot of shootouts. They had to score a lot of points to win and cover. That defense should be a lot better. Mikhail Cunningham, the quarterback, is raving about this defense coming into the season. Satterfield says we're way ahead. We're levels, was the quote, levels ahead of where we were last year, starting the year on the defensive side of the football. Western Kentucky, they lose Ty Story, who was their quarterback. He transferred from Arkansas over to Western Kentucky, and now they're going to go with this Davis Shanley. And I saw enough of Davis Shanley last year to know he was terrible. It was awful in limited action. The offense wasn't even all that great with Story, but with Shanley, it was worse. The strength of Western Kentucky and the Hilltoppers last year was their defense. It was actually pretty good. They had a lot of talent on that side of the ball. They actually played pretty well, but they lose so much of that talent from last year's team. The defense has been gutted. I think they're walking into a tough spot here against a very good Louisville team that I think is poised to build on that first year of success under Scott Satterfield. And these two teams actually met last year. And again, Louisville was just in year one of Satterfield. Western Kentucky had a better defense last year than they do this year. and probably a better quarterback as well. Louisville still beat Western Kentucky 38-21 last year, and they actually led the game 38-14 going into the fourth quarter. So I'm right there with you, Big Ragoo, laying the double digits with Louisville.
Let's go get them.
Good luck.
Absolutely. And the other one was the one Conor Mack mentioned, the other game that I've bet already. Louisville was one. Coastal Carolina plus the points against Kansas was the other. Coastal Carolina beat Kansas last year 12-7. And I, for the life of me, can't understand the rush to bet Kansas, to bet this thing up from -3 at the open to -7 right now.
Wow.
What, is it the revenge angle? What is
Yeah,
this, the revenge spot? Is that what this is? I don't buy the revenge angle here. Sorry, you got to be good. Good teams cover in revenge angles. Good programs, stable programs cover in revenge angles. Not a Kansas team that's replacing a quarterback. Les Miles just said yesterday he doesn't even know who the starter is going to be yet. It's going to be Thomas McVitie or Miles Kendrick. It's going to be one of those two guys. It's going to be a guy making his first start regardless. It's going to be an offense that, they replaced the offensive coordinator midway through last season as well. There's turnover on the O-line. I don't love the skill position talent. There's one guy on the skill positions I like, Puka Williams, the running back. He's really, really good. But again, I don't love the receiving core. Their defense is going to be, I think, the same old Kansas defense. Can't stop a nosebleed. That's been the issue for years for this Jayhawks team. And Coastal Carolina, I like the young coach, Jamie Chadwell. Think about the fact they just joined FBS and they were as competitive and decent, at least ATS, throughout the course of the season last year. I think they're going to be much better on defense. They, too, have to replace their quarterback, but he's in the same system. I like that. Same program. He knows the offense at least, even though he's a new starting quarterback for Coastal Carolina. But their defense, which was, kind of rough last year, but they bring back so many of those starters on that defensive side this year, Coastal Carolina. That should make a big difference for the Chanticleers. I'm going to dare Kansas to beat anybody at this point by more than a touchdown. It's been tough winning games, period, straight up. Never mind covering, laying a full touchdown as a favorite. So I think we do have a live underdog there with Coastal Carolina. And I'm kind of interested in the over and Louisiana Tech plus the points against Baylor. We didn't talk about that game. Louisiana Tech's going to be great offensively, but they got their quarterback returning as well. Good amount of skill position talent, but the defense looks like it's been gutted from last year. And that's a concern going up against Baylor. Baylor's got a returning offensive line. Charlie Brewer is back at the quarterback spot. I know it's a new head coach, a guy that probably deserved to be a head coach. Dave Miranda comes over from LSU, did a great job there as the defensive coordinator under Coach O. Ed Orgeron deserved the head coaching opportunity at Baylor. The offense, but again, he's got to inherit a defense that they have some depletion and some losses from last year's team. Baylor's defense was solid at times last year, and they now have to replace some guys. So that's another one where, again, I'm worried about overs in the first game, but that over kind of makes sense, La Tech and Baylor, and as well a lean to La Tech plus the points. But those I haven't pulled the trigger on just yet. The only two I've got in pocket so far from a side perspective are Coastal Carolina and Louisville for this Saturday. But there you go.
Hey, Ron Crawford in the chat says Baylor is postponed. Is that right?
Is it?
Oh, Louis.
We'll have to check that.
There is one. No, Tulsa, Oklahoma State, I believe, got postponed. That's the one. That's the one I knew for sure got postponed. Tulsa,
SMU too.
Oklahoma State.
TCU, I think, postponed.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah, the one that was announced earlier today was Tulsa, Oklahoma State. That game was scheduled for this Saturday night at 7:30. They've moved it back a week. So it's going to be September 19th. It's going to be next Saturday instead, that game between Tulsa and Oklahoma State, in-state battle there. That's going to be an interesting one because they got the Baylor transfer still as their quarterback, Zach Smith, for that Tulsa offense against Oklahoma State. We know they're a team that Chuba Hubbard's back there again this year, Canadian, Edmonton, Alberta. Proud of that guy. Is an amazing running back. He's back there for Oklahoma State, so looking forward to seeing that game. But that game now will happen next week. So we'll get to the rest of the game Saturday. Before we wrap up, some closing thoughts, closing remarks from my terrific crew. This was a lot of fun. I'm going to enjoy doing these shows with you guys all season, twice a week. Conor Mack, we'll start with you. Some closing remarks before we sign off and call it a night.
Oh, just had fun, had a blast. I was going to say one thing about the Coastal Carolina game before we go.
Yep.
The only reason why I haven't pulled the trigger yet is I thought it might get a little higher. I doubt it, but I was going to wait a day or two because I know the Sharps might be on it come game time here by Saturday. So I'm going to see if it can get to 7.5, maybe an 8. I don't think so, but that's the only reason why I haven't pulled it yet. But hopefully, I'm just waiting. But other than that, I had a blast today, boys. Love talking college football with you guys.
Yeah, great stuff, Conor. Matt, Ben Sports 24/7, saying Louisiana Tech isn't good on either side of the ball. I definitely agree. Defense looks scary bad for them. I mean, they lost a lot there. I think the offense could still be pretty good, but again, you are talking Baylor. You are talking a Big 12 Power 5 team on the road, so maybe that offense, when they're up against, a Baylor team in the trenches defensively, although they do have to replace a lot, could struggle, but definitely going to have to wait and see. Postponed due to hurricane-related COVID. Law Tech, says Ron Crawford. Well, Ron Crawford's on top of stuff, and he's a hardcore capper. If you see him, he's posting his spreadsheets every day. So if he's saying the game's postponed, I believe him. So it's probably off that game. So that's another thing. You could just spend all this time capping a game, and then you find out, COVID outbreak, hurricane, something's happened, and all of a sudden the game's canceled or postponed. So beware of that. You got to have eyes in the back of your head with this stuff, college football this year. Without a doubt. Big Ragoo, we'll go to you next. Final words.
Talking about getting canceled, just like our horse got canceled. 1,000 words in the Derby. Son of a gun.
I know, late scratch. Unbelievable.
Man. But you know what? Yeah. That's a whole nother subject. All right, so basically, guys, listen, we're going to be back next Wednesday. We're going to be on every Wednesday, not Tuesday. Next Wednesday, set your clocks for that same time. And then more or less, just kind of like as fluid as things are right now with the COVID situations and whatnot, make sure, you guys are paying attention to the scheduling, the information that's coming out. And don't forget, tune us back next Wednesday night, and we'll keep you guys abreast of what's going on in college football.
Absolutely. Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, starting next week. That is when this early week college football show will be here for odds.com.
And, of course, the Saturday show.
YouTube channel. And, of course, yes, the Saturday show, 11 a.m. Eastern, also right here on the Odds HQ YouTube channel. So we're going to have a lot of fun throughout the season. Wait till and this is just the ACC and the Big 12 coming into the 4A this week. Wait till the SEC comes in a couple weeks. Then the funds and the heat's really going to start to turn up here in college football. DJ Big Boss, let's get some final words from you, my man.
Hey, I just want to say, big shout out to the people in the chat that showed up. J Con, Neilio, Manny R, Ben Sports 24/7, Detroit What, Paco Healy, Alex Ramirez, Joey Work, Viper and B. Just a phenomenal group showing up. Ron Crawford and this guy Eddie Machete too. He's a funny guy right there. Deer Slayer. I said Ron Crawford. Just big shout out to all of them for showing up, man, on such short notice and hopping in the chat, having some fun with us, sticking around with us for the night. And make sure y'all come back on Saturday, man. I'm gonna do my bestest to try to put some more picks together, and we're gonna hit the scene Saturday morning, and we're gonna do it real good.
We're gonna cash some tickets like we always do. That's what we do.
That's right. No, this has been a great run for sure on this show. It has been phenomenal. I mean, we've really put our heads together. We've come up with some really good results, and I'm definitely thinking that we're going to have more of the same as well moving forward here in college football this season. We got off to a great start last week, so hoping that continues here moving forward, and we believe that it will. And we thank everybody in the chat.
Absolutely.
I don't have the chat open, so I'm not typing in it right now. But again, everybody that's in there, thank you very much for tuning in for our very first early week show. We appreciate that. So one last time before we wrap up, again, this show will be Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, starting next week. And then this Saturday and every Saturday throughout the college football season, we will have our pre-kickoff, pre-game college football betting show right here on the Odds HQ YouTube channel, Saturdays at 11 a.m. Eastern time, 1 hour before the kickoff of the first game. So make sure you join us then. We will all have our best bets, and all of our plays. Our entire card will be finalized by then, Saturday morning. So make sure this Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, you're right back here on the Odds HQ YouTube channel joining us to break down the college football card. For Big Ragoo, for Conor Mack, for DJ Big Boss, I'm Ian Cameron. Thank you Thank you a million times over, everyone, for tuning in. We appreciate it. Have a great rest of your Tuesday night and week. We'll see you again Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, right here on the Odds HQ YouTube channel for the college football pregame show from a betting perspective. Don't you dare miss it. Have a good night, everybody. Good luck with your plays.